Thank you, and welcome all to the City of Brisbane's meeting of November 5th, 2020. And if the clerk can read the preamble for us, that would be appreciated.
This meeting is compliant with the Governor's Executive Order N-29-20 issued on March 17, 2020, allowing for a deviation of teleconference rules required by the Brown Act. The purpose of this is to provide the safest environment for staff, council members, and the public while allowing for public participation. The public may address the council using exclusively remote public comment options. Members of the public may view the City Council meeting by logging into the Zoom meeting listed below. City Council meetings can also be viewed live and or on demand via the City's YouTube channel, youtube.com/BrisbaneCA, or on Comcast Channel 27. Archived videos can be replayed on the City's website, http://brisbaneca.org/meetings. The City Council meeting will be an exclusively virtual meeting. The City Council agenda materials may be viewed online at www.brisbaneca.org at least 24 hours prior to a special meeting and at least 72 hours prior to a regular meeting. Meeting participants are encouraged to submit public comments in writing in advance of the meeting. Aside from commenting while in the Zoom meeting, the following email and text line will also be monitored using the meeting, and public comments received will be read into the record during oral communications 1 and 2 or during an item. You can email ipadilla@brisbaneca.org, text 628-219-2922, join the Zoom meeting ID 979-9592-7541, passcode 123456, with a call-in number 1-669-900-9128. If you need special assistance to participate in this meeting, please contact the City Clerk at 415-508-2113. Notification in advance of the meeting will enable the City to make reasonable arrangements to ensure accessibility to this meeting.
Thank you so much. And with that, I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Conway.
Here.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Here.
Councilmember Davis.
Here.
Councilmember Lenz.
Here.
And Mayor O'Connell.
Here. Thank you. With that, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
Move adoption of the agenda as is.
And do we have a second?
Second that.
So moved by Councilmember Conway and seconded by Councilmember Cunningham. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Conway.
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Lentz.
Aye.
And Mayor O'Connell.
Aye. Thank you. And that takes us to oral communication 1 for the public to speak on items not on the agenda. Do we have any members of the public in the waiting room or emails sent in?
There are no email communications for oral communications. We have 2 members of the public in the meeting. If you are interested in doing oral communications 1, would you please unmute yourself? It looks like there are no members of the public wishing to speak at this time.
Great, thank you. Then we will move on to item 5, which is the consent calendar. Do I have a motion to approve, or would any members of the council like to remove any of the items A through F?
Motion to approve items A through F.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Great, that was moved by Councilmember Conway and seconded by Councilmember Cunningham. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Conway.
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Lance.
Aye.
And Mayor O'Connell.
Aye. Thank you. And that moves us to public hearing, item G, which is to consider introduction of Ordinance 579, proposed amendment of Titles 15 and 17 of the Brisbane Municipal Code pertaining to the regulation of grading. And this item was continued and not heard on the City Council meeting of September 17, 2020. And this is something that I will ask the council members to agree upon. I'd like to hear the staff report, but I would like to postpone making a decision on this item. The presumed council member, Mackin, who was just voted in and is yet to be certified, was very heavily involved in the discussion with this. And so when she was on the Planning Commission stage, and as a consideration to her and her involvement, and to make sure we get it right, because I think it's going to have a lot of implications down the road, I'd like to hold off on the council making a decision until we can get her input on this. So that's a request I'm making, and I have talked that over with staff. I understand we do not have any reason to push, any deadlines to make this go forward, but I would sort of like to get the council members' opinions on moving forward this way.
I'm fine with that. Thanks, Terry.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with it too, though, Clark, you're the one that, is leaving. So if
Yeah,
do you have any passionate desires to make a decision on this?
I'm ecstatic. We're moving
Okay, so with that, I'd like to get a staff report, and then we can move on with direction to continue it.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. By way of background, this comprehensive grading ordinance amendment was initiated back in 2012 to 2013, partially in response to a lawsuit settlement regarding the approval of the Ang condominium project on Bayshore Boulevard. There are several issues that, in particular, the ordinance was supposed to be revised to address. One included increasing the penalties for illegal grading, prohibiting removal of existing vegetation having habitat value without providing mitigation, requiring habitat restoration of graded areas, and a number of other revisions were also proposed to reflect best technical practices and provide additional procedural clarity. Ordinance was originally recommended for approval by the Planning Commission and went through multiple hearings for the City Council in 2013. It was tabled as city efforts were focused on other issues such as the Brisbane soil processing project and the Baylands. Trying to basically move this ordinance along to completion. It was revived earlier this year and was brought forward to the Council Infrastructure Subcommittee for a preliminary discussion in July of this year and was scheduled for a council hearing. The draft ordinance is substantially the same as was presented in 2013 to the council, but there are a few revisions I want to point out, and I think that are subject of some discussion. Most notable relates to the Planning Commission's role in grading. The current ordinance requires the Planning Commission to approve a permit, and for a number of reasons that are outlined in your staff report and the attachments, that's problematic for a number of reasons. It puts the Planning Commission in a position of arguably basically making a decision on something, a matter of engineering matter that requires professional license. So I think it puts the city at some risk in terms of the commission not being technically qualified under state law to make decisions on grading. Even in the 2013 revision, it was acknowledged, and the solution at that point was to make the commission's action or eliminate the permit requirement, but instead make the commission's decision actually a recommendation to the city engineer. So it was being changed from a permit to basically advisory role to the city engineer. And there was also limited the commission's review to grading for projects with a related discretionary permit, and established some better defined criteria to focus the commission's review. While the proposed revisions eliminated the primary legal problem with the ordinance as it currently exists, there are some other difficulties, and we decided to revisit it this year when the ordinance was reintroduced for discussion. For one, it creates an unusual situation where now the planning commission or public appointed body is advisory to city staff, which is, I think, a very unusual position. That could be confusing to all parties involved, the public, the commission. They're not used to serving as an advisory to a city staff, so that's a little bit unusual, and we think that would be problematic. The review criteria are problematic for a variety of reasons. They lack objective standards, and they're also inconsistent with other provisions of the municipal code, particularly related to tree permits. As such, it is recommended that formal planning commission review of grading permit applications be eliminated from the grading ordinance. Note that a project, if it's still subject to planning commission review through another discretionary permit, whether it be a design permit, a use permit, any grading that's associated with that project would be subject to review by the commission in their review of the larger project. So in determining findings, for example, of granting a design permit, they could take the grading into account in considering whether they wanted to approve a design permit and making the appropriate findings. There just wouldn't be a separate set of findings related to the grading, but they can still certainly consider that as part of their normal duties in reviewing any other discretionary project that's subject to their purview. Another proposed revision was to clarify some of the appeal procedures that were set forth in the ordinance. Under the current ordinance, all grading permits are appealable to the Planning Commission and subsequently to the City Council. The proposal in 2013 to revise the ordinance modified this process by making permits appealable to the city manager and subsequently to the City Council. Again, the proposed revision still leaves the council in somewhat of an untenable position of having to potentially rule on matters that are technical in nature in terms of the adequacy of a grading permit from a professional standpoint. So it's recommended that the appeal procedure be revised to end at the city manager level. That's the recommendation at the time, our current recommendation. The Planning Commission, again, when these changes were proposed earlier this year, they were provided to the Planning Commission informationally, and the Planning Commission, in reviewing them, they did have some comments were attached to your staff report this evening. And again, they get into some of the same issues that we've kind of touched on briefly here. Again, the concern that the 2013 guideline, the earlier guidelines that the commission operates under and the current ordinance conflict with state law. Again, for the reasons I've already mentioned. The commission had a concern that the idea of reviewing grading in the context of project review was somehow inconsistent with the other concern we brought up in terms of making a decision on a grading. In staff's opinion, these are kind of two separate issues. Nobody's asking the Planning Commission to make a determination of grading on a standalone technical basis. They would be reviewing grading in the context of the kind of normal project they review for any discretionary permit. So we're not creating I don't think there's an inconsistency between eliminating their review of standalone grading versus allowing them to review grading as part of a larger discretionary permit. We don't think that's a conflict at all. Also some concern regarding the discretion and authority over the management of street trees, which is very clear in other areas of the municipal code that's under the purview of the city engineer. And again, so the Planning Commission's review and the right of way in terms of street trees by the municipal code is otherwise limited. So again, we're trying to eliminate an inconsistency that exists. And then the concern was also raised that appealing, the appeal process revisions, sending appeals to the city manager is essentially no better than sending appeals to the planning commission. Again, the thought being that the city manager doesn't necessarily have the technical background or certifications to opine on grading. I think there are some very distinct differences between the administrative process and an appeal of reviewing technical documents versus kind of the typical public process that occurs in a planning commission hearing. So I think they're very different processes and in terms of what's taken into account. The city engineer, the city manager currently has a final decision authority over other kind of permit applications that are processed through the city, for example, tree permits. So we don't find this inconsistent with that as well. I know you're not planning on taking action this evening. However, the recommendation of the staff report would be to introduce Ordinance 579 as presented this evening and answer any questions you might have.
Great, thank you very much, John. I think that gave us quite a bit of background information. Are there any questions from council members they'd like to ask now on things that they'd like to get clarification on?
Madam Mayor, I do have questions, but I was hoping that the subcommittee could, just provide their take on, their correspondence with staff in putting together the agenda for tonight for this ordinance.
Honestly, I'll say that as a subcommittee member, I did not have a large input in this item coming forward tonight. We did discuss it somewhat in subcommittee. I don't think we got completely in the weeds, and I hadn't read some of the concerns that the Planning Commission had read. Clark, would you like to add anything else to that?
No, I think it was just to go ahead and move it forward to the whole council, and that was really kind of what we looked at and said, let's just move it to the whole council to have that discussion. So, by involving council member elect Mackin, I think it was, actually a good idea because, I know she was heavily involved in that. So I think that's a great way to deal with it and move forward. It also gives everybody more time to kind of really look at that and get their ideas out and also get a response to some questions instead of, I think we only had a couple of days to prepare for it. And I know that's true with everything, but this gives a little bit more time because it is a lot there.
One of the things the reason I wanted to postpone this and get another perspective on it was that I do feel that we're having more properties developed that are on steeper slopes. We're having more people wanting to come forward with the ability to build secondary units and ADUs. And so I think that while many of these issues might have been smaller in the past, they've become more of a forefront issue for some of the development that may come forward in the city. And so I want to make sure we really have a very clear understanding and get this right. So that was my reasoning for proposing this pushback until Councilmember-elect Mackin comes onto the council. But I think that certainly any other council members who have questions and on specifics should be able to ask them now of staff. But we also, go ahead.
Oh, I'm gonna wait to ask my questions until we're closer to making a decision, just because I want those responses to be fresh in my mind before we begin to have discussions. So I think I'm just gonna hold off on my questions for now.
Okay. Karen?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, my questions are small, but I think, if we all ask the questions when we're all in the same room, and with Colleen on board, who was very involved with, part of this, might be really, really helpful to all of us. So I'll hold off as well.
With that, Cliff, did you have any other questions?
No, I don't. I agree with Councilmember Cunningham and Davis. I know Councilmember-elect Mackin is in the house, but we can't have that kind of dialogue back and forth with her until she's sworn in, and that really does make sense. I'd rather ask my questions so that so that we can get to making it right, like you said, Madam Mayor. I think there's a balance to be had here, and it makes sense to just wait until we have everybody in the room.
Great, thank you. This is a public hearing, and I will look to legal to make sure we should open the public hearing. That is the case?
That's what I was just texting about. Yes, Madam Mayor, you can hold the public hearing. You're not required to have a vote.
Great, thank you. So, City Clerk, do we have any members of the public who have expressed an interest in this item?
Madam Mayor, it just occurs to me that it's perfectly legal. We had the issue come up a couple months ago where there was concern about people being able to testify through multiple opportunities because of the way a matter was being handled. So you may want to just set the ground rules for whether somebody testifying tonight or offering public comment can do the same at the next meeting. You should probably just clarify it so we don't have questions in between the meetings. It's whatever you prefer.
Okay. I think if there's anyone here who has come to express concerns on this, we should hear their testimony now, and also invite them back when this gets rescheduled to also testify and to have whatever testimony they give tonight put into the record so that it follows through and there's that continuity in their testimony. With that, I accept a motion to open the public comments.
We don't need a motion, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
We just open it.
We'll open the public hearing.
We have Michelle Salmon wanting to speak.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Michelle Salmon, and I am glad that you're putting this forward, postponing this until Colleen Mackin is seated, since she's recently reviewed this. But I would like to say that I feel that it's very important that we look at this really carefully, because I think that community and citizen oversight of some of these issues is really important. And more things get moved to administrative or ministerial under the planning department. And a good example is the situation with 130 Sierra Point Road, where if that had not had a grading issue that was reviewed by the Planning Commission, it would not have come up that they have it would have been approved administratively by the planning department, that they have a non-conforming garage that is on the property line and that hasn't been examined for structural stability enough to handle the load of the grading up above it. And so without that public oversight by the Planning Commission, and I commend our Planning Commission, they have done a tremendous job. I think that we've been very fortunate in the last several years to have a very attentive and well-informed Planning Commission. So I'm really glad that you're putting this forward, and I do look forward to making a more coherent, clear statement of what I think the oversight should be on grading and street trees. So thank you very much, Council, for making the decision. Clark, I'm sorry that you're not going to get to speak on it. Well, I'm sure you can speak on it from the citizen side. And I just also really want to thank you, Clark, for your many years of service. So that's it. That's all I have to say for now. But I do reserve the right to speak again when we actually are moving forward with looking at this and taking a vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak?
There are no other written correspondence or members of the public wishing to speak.
Thank you. With that, we'll close the public hearing and continue this item to the next available slot. Thank you very much.
Do we need a motion to table it, Tom? Or would you
Because we opened the public hearing, we should just go ahead and record a motion, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so I would like a motion to continue the public hearing. Do I have any makers? Okay,
So
and a
moved.
second?
Okay.
And a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Conway,
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham. You want to unmute, Karen? Just making sure.
You're muted. There you go.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Hi.
Councilmember Lentz,
Aye.
and Mayor O'Connell.
Aye, thank you. Okay, that moves us along to item 7, old business, dog park resurfacing. And this is an item that was first discussed at the City Council meeting of October 1st, 2020. And a staff report, please.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. Earlier this year, the Parks and Recreation Commission addressed this item, reviewed various alternative surfacing options, and assessed the best fit for the Brisbane Dog Park. They voted unanimously to recommend to Council to proceed with resurfacing of the park, including a majority of hardscape surface such as decomposed granite and some smaller patches of artificial turf. These adjustments to the facility would allow for it to remain open to residents 365 days a year without closures resulting from inclement weather or drought. This item came before Council previously, at which time staff was directed to return with a few variations for consideration along with their estimated costs. The 3 options containing artificial turf and decomposed granite are outlined in attachment 1 of the staff report. The Council had some additional questions pertaining to the artificial turf materials and its overall composition as well. A spec sheet has been provided with the staff report as attachment 3. Products such as canine grass are specifically designed for dogs and installed in dog parks throughout the country. It incorporates a natural design that is gentle on paws, permeable to allow liquid waste to pass through, and is made with antimicrobial protection and non-toxic materials. The design also eliminates the need for traditional infill, which lends itself to a cleaner and safer design that's overall easier to maintain. The scope of work will include excavation and subgrading of the space, as well as installation of base and surfacing. So I'm going to do a quick share screen here. Hopefully everybody can see. Are you able to see that?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Option 1 shown here is what was presented to the Council previously. It includes approximately 1,000 square feet of turf area, artificial turf area, and the estimated cost for this layout is approximately $60,000. The estimated cost for option 2 shown here, which includes approximately 2,000 square feet, including a long linear patch. The estimated cost for that option is around $80,000. And lastly, the third option shown here would install artificial turf to cover the entire existing grass area, which is approximately 4,200 square feet. The lifespan of artificial turf surfacing is approximately 15 years, and ongoing maintenance costs would be significantly reduced given that mowing, watering, reseeding, and new sod would not be required. Ongoing maintenance would include minor watering of the turf for sanitation purposes, treatment with bacterial enzymes for odor management, occasional vacuuming of the turf, and top coating of the hardscape surfacing if a decomposed granite was used. The city's public works team estimates that ongoing maintenance of the dog park would be significantly reduced by almost about half of what it is today. At this time, we're asking for Council to review the various options presented here, and if desired, approve funding based on the respective preferred option.
Thank you, Noreen. One item I missed was the cost of the largest turf area, option 3.
I apologize. The estimated cost to resurface the entire area with artificial turf is approximately $120,000.
Okay. So just to recap, we were looking at 40, 80, and 120.
It's 60, 80, and 120. That's correct.
60, 80, yes. And 120. Okay, great. Thank you. And then the other question is the current cost of maintaining. What kind of estimated cost was that? So what would the yearly savings be?
I don't have the exact cost in front of me, but I did speak with our Deputy Director of Public Works, and her estimate as far as maintenance costs were concerned was that it would be about half. And for reference, the cost to reseed and resod and put down new real grass, each time we do that, it's anywhere from $25,000 to $30,000.
Okay, so under any of the circumstances, even if we went with the most expensive option, we're looking at maybe a 4-year return would be.
That's correct.
Maybe a ballpark, not specific.
That's correct.
Okay, great. Thank you. With that, I'd like to open it up to council member questions for staff.
I have a question. Can I ask my question?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So, Noreen, I'm sorry, I probably missed it looking through it. With the decomposed granite in options 1 and 2, what is the life of the decomposed granite or whatever other material would be used versus, the whole area? I'm just looking at, okay, it's probably more fun to have different surfaces, but is the decomposed granite going to get into the turf and wear the turf down faster? Does the decomposed granite need to be replaced a lot more often? What do we know about that?
Sure. So the decomposed granite certainly has a long lifetime as well. As far as upkeeping that, it's really just putting down a top coat, a top layer occasionally to keep it kind of fresh and to level out and keep it graded. There certainly is a possibility for that to get into the turf areas, but the canine grass specifically, that material, you can easily blow or vacuum out any decomposed granite that gets in there. It won't compromise the integrity of the material.
Okay, and when we had the meeting with the people who are using the dog park back in September of 2019, there seemed to be, from the group of people who were present and giving input, that the users of the dog park actually liked the 2 different surfaces over a complete single surface. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So then, can we just really quickly look at the second option again, please? Okay. All right. Yeah, I mean, I remember all the input, and I know that the people who used the dog park really did a lot of homework and did a lot of homework with you about what they wanted. So the last option is basically, what we had requested from a city council perspective, but options 1 and 2 were as a result of the feedback you got from dog park users, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other council members who'd like to ask a question? Go ahead, please.
So I'm just concerned about the smell factor. Like, I know that just like from being at other dog parks that are crushed granite, like there's just like an odor there. And so what is like the protocol for making sure that we're not getting like this foul odor and whether that be on crushed granite or on the turf, like what's the process for maintenance with the respect to odor?
Sure. So, I mean, with any type of surfacing in a dog park, there's going to be some level of odor, right? It's would be impossible to try to mitigate all of that. The canine artificial turf has microbial built into the blades of their grass, and they also have products that are specific to their line of surfacing that help kind of break down some of those odors, and just the general structure of their product with the multiple layers of surfacing. I can provide a graphic here if you're able to see that. Kind of demonstrates how their product is designed with a top layer, a drainable aggregate, and then on the bottom a sub base. So the urine potentially would drain through here and then through to the other material, so that it wouldn't sit on the top of the surface, and you wouldn't experience as much of an odor as you would with a different type of surfacing. As far as decomposed granite is, we do have that currently at either end of the dog park. I haven't received an overwhelming amount of complaints regarding the odor based on the decomposed granite areas. It is maintained in addition to the remainder of the park, and it can be easily watered down, and we can use a non-toxic cleaner like we would with the artificial turf as well.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Madison?
Can I ask some questions, Madam Mayor?
Okay, go ahead, Cliff.
Thanks, Noreen, for your presentation. So based upon what the council had the last time, how is, say, option one in the previous plan? How do they compare?
Option one shown here is the same that was provided to the council at our last meeting.
It is the same. Okay.
That's correct.
All right. And then that little mound area, okay, that's not included in the item option two?
Correct.
Okay. I kind of like that feature. Just thinking about, our own dog. He likes to, jump on things and get that higher, perspective, especially when he's a smaller dog, kind of above it. When we were here the last time, it was late in the evening. I think people were worn down. I was definitely worn down that night. But when I look at all three options, I do like the one that the Park and Rec Commission recommended. And I have done a little bit of investigating in regards to the decomposed granite having the space, and I think it also relates to what you were talking about, Karen. Dog owners, they like the multiple surfaces, and I haven't heard any complaints from anyone who said that the decomposed granite was hard on the dog's paws. There's so many dog parks have that surface. I'm sure there are probably some dogs that it might not be good for their paws if they have particular issues. But
I did hear that feedback because I did my own poll.
Okay, so people did. So dog owners said that their dog's paws were getting scratched out.
Yes, I had personally called about 5 dog park users just to do my own sort of questioning. They kind of, to be honest, felt that they were only given the option between turf and crushed granite. And I wasn't there for the conversation, so I don't know, just because grass has been so hard for us to maintain. And you see in the staff report, like, it is written that the preference is for grass. And so the grass really, because it's not, we can't really maintain it, like was kind of taken off the table. So they were just kind of given 2 options really that no one was super thrilled about. But I think that, like, from my conversations with people, they communicated like, hey, we'd rather have grass, but we understand, but that some element of like more skewing to a grass-like substance over like to have a higher ratio of grass to granite seemed to be much more preferred. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, no. I appreciate that. And yeah, you know, when you look at, say, the South City dog park, and that's the one where I got my research from, because it's all, for the most part, it is that crushed granite. It does have bark too, and I know that's not part of the the option, but it seemed like the bark could get, like, be more of a maintenance issue. Like, you have to go out there and make sure it doesn't get into everything. All three of these options here are really low maintenance, but which I think is great in what we should do. Could it be possible, Noreen, to have a dog park that's like option one, but just have maybe bigger islands and still have the space in between?
Sure.
And then, so the mound area, that was incorporated not only as a feature for the dogs, but then also as a way to mitigate hauling off dirt, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And then in option two, it doesn't have that mound in it, correct?
That's correct.
Or does it?
No, it's a proposed flat surface area.
Okay, so it gets taken away. So, yeah,
Could we combine that though? Could we combine? Could we say, hey, we like the mound, but we would like more grass, so maybe we could have, we could do a combo deal?
Absolutely, yeah. If that was the desire of the council, we could do that. We could also establish a not to exceed budget if that's easier than looking at these layouts with their estimated costs. We could do that as well.
If I may, Madam Mayor, option one was kind of as a result of the conferencing between the dog park users and staff. And so, yes, and dogs like the little mound, and it would save us money having the mound anyway, because it would save us taking the dirt around. And then what Councilmember Lentz just said, just make those two turf areas a little bit bigger. And I think Madison Davis just said the same thing. And then not to exceed sounds like a good idea to me.
So I'd like to chime in, and I do or have in the past used dog park quite a bit. And even with the option 3, there is quite a bit of decomposed granite on both ends of this park, because we're only seeing a snippet. And then there's decomposed granite where typically people stand or sit while their dogs are playing. So there's still quite a bit of the decomposed granite in this landscape feature. And I don't see why, if someone wants a hillock there, or a mound or a slope, so that there's a higher point of ground for the smaller dogs or whatever, I don't see how that would add significant cost to any of these if it's using existing soils. I think we also, in this rendition, it doesn't show where the main drain is. That is right at basically at the corner, the westernmost corner of the building, and off about in the center of this rendition. So right about where the 200-foot mark is on our map, there's a drain right about there that is in that field. And that might be a water drain or something else, but it is noticeable when you're there. I think there's still a lot of hard surfaces for the dogs to play on, certainly with all of these options. And I think that, for me, the most amenable for what my personal dog likes to do and what I see dogs doing is the larger area of turf. For me, a lot of times when they're playing on the DG, the toys, the balls, everything gets really dirty because it sticks to dog spit. The DG does. So when you're playing with the ball with them, all the toys get very disgusting. So I would prefer more grass in it, but I'd love to hear from the public if they're listening or would like to make any comments.
If I may, council member or Madam Mayor, if I could say something.
Sure.
I'm not leaving just yet. So Noreen, on option 2, is that shaped like a bone on purpose, or is that just something that you just put in?
Yeah, it's just to demonstrate that the vendors can designate different shapes of the turf if that's a desire. Otherwise, it could just be a linear rectangle. I
see. Well, I don't have dogs anymore, but when I had dogs, they really didn't care a whole lot about what the surface was, but because I think we're attaching human emotions to a lot of this, it's like, and I've had dogs my whole life except for the last couple of years, but I think a variation of option 2 and option 1, at least hearing from the council, is probably appropriate, and maybe put a not to exceed of the 80,000 on there, or 85, without going too crazy on it. That's my feedback.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, if we're going to talk about it, or we're going to open it up for the public, but I like where you're going, Honor.
I would like to hear if there's any public comments that we've gotten.
There are no members of the public that wrote any written communication or text. It's just a reminder for members of the public at home. You could also text 628-219-2922 should you have any comments regarding this item, or email ipadilla@brisbaneca.org.
We can give it just a minute or two for the public to chime in. So seeing no interest, are there any members of the council who would like to put a motion forward?
I didn't really get to state my opinion.
Yeah.
Just kind of stated what I had heard was the feedback. Me personally, I would like to see us have more skewed towards more turf than less. So I would be more amenable to option 2 with the addition of a little mound if we wanted to do that, just because I think that, because the feedback we've gotten consistently has been that people like grass. And if we're not going to be able to provide them grass, something that looks and feels like grass to the highest degree possible, to me feels like us trying to incorporate some alternative that closely mirrors what we have, but that will hold up to, the activity. So for me, I'd like to see as much turf as possible. It seems like the council's skewing the other way, so I'd like to propose option 2 with a mound.
Well, if we're all letting our wishes know, I would go with option 3 with a mound, but
I would go with that too.
Yeah, you know, in regards to what Clark was saying, yeah, dogs, they just want a place to run, right? That's their thing. And, you know, for people, yeah, we want, want to provide the nice amenities for our pooches. You know, that's, you know, they're part of our families, right? We want to take care of them. You know, just looking at the budget too, I mean, sure, we could spend $120,000. What's an extra, you know, $50,000? Or we could go with what the Planning Commission recommended, which is $60,000. And I guarantee you that if you did a survey of the dogs, they would, say, you know, they would say they're both great. So, but, you know, when we were talking about it, you know, the last time, you know, having a little bit more grass area seemed, you know, a direction where we wanted to go. And, you know, I like the design of option 1 and where Karen was going, you know, adding, you know, making the islands bigger, I think would be, you know, a better look. And, you know, then you could put some, you know, maybe some small trees around the area and you know, and then have a budget that's say $70,000, you know, split it in the middle, go from 60 to 80, make it 70, and that's still $50K. Yeah, that's right, because it was 120, so that was $60,000. So that's $50,000 less than option 3. And I think the dog owners and the dogs will have a wonderful time.
So can I ask a question? The amount of turf compared to the overall dog park in option 1 is what percentage of the dog park?
So the amount of turf proposed on option 1 is about 1,000 square feet. The existing grass area is 4,200 square feet. And I would presume that...
What's the entire size of the dog park?
It's probably another 75 feet on either end. So 150 feet of DG would be my guess.
I'm not getting these numbers. So the square footage of the dog park is how much?
I would say probably close to 5,700 square feet, 5,500 square feet, and 4,200 is the grass area.
And they're proposing 1,000. So option 1 is 25% grass, I mean, of the turf for the entire dog park?
Yes.
It doesn't look right to me when we've got quite a bit more of dog park there than showing in this picture. Of the outlined area, it's maybe 25%, but not of the entire dog park.
And why don't we just do option 2 with a mound at the other end, which is sort of maximizing the grassy area as much as possible without spending $120,000. I mean, you know, and put a cap on it. Everyone's going to be happy because, I mean, I get that whole thing of here's this uninterrupted long dog bone that if you're throwing a frisbee for a dog, the dog's not going from turf to DG to turf, and we can keep them together. And truly, if we talk to the dogs, they're like, just give us somewhere to go run play. But I think what Madison and Cliff kind of said was, let's go with that second one with a mound, because the mound idea is obviously good. Plus, it would keep some costs down because we're reusing the dirt that we're excavating anyway, and just put that 80,000 cap on it or something. Does that make sense?
If that's a motion, I'll make a second on that.
Yeah.
Honorable Mayor, we do have one member of the public wishing to speak on this item.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Michelle Salmon, can you please unmute?
Yeah, sorry, can you hear me? I really didn't intend to speak on this because I don't have a dog. I have cats. But I will say this. Originally, the whole reason that we got a dog park was to stop people from using the sports fields for their dogs, because parents objected to finding dog waste material and pee on the lawns where their kids were playing. And I've noticed an increasing amount of people using the sports fields again for their dogs and letting them run loose, in particular Lippman Field. And so I think you need to take that into consideration when you're doing this, that if you do something where they don't like it, they're going to go to the fields and run their dogs on the sports fields, which was the whole idea of having a dog park, was to eliminate dogs on the fields, which they're not allowed to be, but they are anyway. So I just want to say that. And then the other thing is that there's been a lot of chatter lately about how the dog park is very exclusive for only certain people or certain dogs because of other aggressive dogs, etc. So I don't know if you need to I hate to have rules, but I hope that the dog park is used by all dogs that want to go have some off-leash time in a safe zone, and not just a few, and that the aggressive dogs don't intimidate the other dogs. There's just a whole long thread recently on social media about that. But anyway, if you don't put enough turf, they'll just be using the fields again, and that sort of defeats the whole purpose of why we put in a dog park. That's it.
Thank you. Any other people who'd like to comment?
There are no other correspondences, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Any more discussion?
I think I said my piece.
Okay. And I would entertain a motion.
I think we have one on the table.
Yeah, it was seconded by Cliff.
Yeah.
And that was for option.
Shall I repeat it? Basically, it was to accept the idea of option 2, a mound at the other end, which would probably mean that we will save a little money from not having to export the dirt underneath the dog bone, and have a not to exceed $80,000 for the project. I think that's what I said.
Noreen, quick question for Noreen. Noreen, do you think if we do that cost savings will offset the additional cost to put more turf on that mound? Or do you think that in adding the mound will cause the existing bone area, rectangle area, to have to shrink in order to stay in that budget?
I think it could probably be a wash, that we would avoid the haul away fees of the materials that would be excavated and graded and then utilized on site, with the addition of the turf mound.
Okay.
Probably be fairly close.
Okay.
So right.
All right. I have a second.
Okay, and right at this moment, the idea of option 2 was given at an $80,000 quote. So do we really want to put, I don't think that those are hard numbers particularly. Does the finance director have any comment whether we should add that 80,000 or if we should allow for contingencies?
Mayor, can I pipe in here? So
sure.
This will come back to you as a bidded project, and you will see the bid at the time.
Okay.
So if it's out of whack to what you want to spend, and I think Stuart can correct me, I don't believe we have this in the budget at this time, so it will have to be a budget amendment in the mid-year.
Right.
Okay.
It's not in the budget yet.
And Madam Mayor, if I could just ask Noreen a question. You've been working closely with a particular company that puts together these artificial turf dog parks, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so do you feel fairly confident that, and granted it has to go out to bid, but that that this particular option would be in that price?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Great, so we have a motion and a second on the table. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Conway,
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Lentz,
Aye.
and Mayor O'Connell.
Reluctantly, yes. Thank you.
Logan's gonna be happy. Come on now.
I do have a question. Was the bid with the light or the classic grass?
Classic.
We should be clear the
Great,
proposal.
thank you.
The proposal. Or the estimate. We don't want to sound like we've picked a winner.
Okay. Thank you. They just gave us 2 grades of grass, so that was a question. Now I lost my agenda. Okay, so that brings us to new business. Item I, to consider adoption of Resolution 2020-63, approving amendment of employment agreement with the city manager. Staff report, please.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council. As I reported in a closed session initially seeking direction, it came to my attention this summer that there was an apparent inconsistency in city investment policy and a couple, originally 3, but ultimately 2 agreements reached many years ago, 2 decades ago, with city manager Holstein and then another individual in the management of the city at the time, about paying housing assistance or providing housing assistance. The issue came to my attention because there was a question about the inconsistency with the city's investment in predictable conservative investments currently versus what was done 20 years ago. And I think it's fair to summarize it and say that the other cities in the region were having the same question because at the time these housing assistance agreements were being reached initially, there were all sorts of them, including equity investments. And in fact, the city of Brisbane did loans. It did a loan and an equity investment. It did a pure equity investment, and it did a hybrid of all 3 of those. What remains at this point, 20 years on, is that all agreements except 2 have been resolved. 1 is not within the purview of the council. And in reviewing the agreement with the city manager, independent of his involvement, I discovered that the return on the assets as an equity investment, which is in the staff report, was not so great. It's $1,500 a year over the last 12 years. Was not so great as to justify the years in which the city actually would have lost money, which has happened a couple times during that 12-year period had the home been sold. So taking into account the previously council adopted conservative investment strategy proposed by Stuart, together with seeing that limited return and knowing that it was the city attorney who was supposed to review compliance and recommend policy on this, I dove in and I just came away convinced that the current practice is not to have equity investments in individual homes. They're too volatile. It doesn't matter about the Bay Area. There could be a problem with the individual home. That's why they're too volatile. And then second, I spoke to the city manager and asked about whether or not he would be willing to simply convert what was a $200,000 investment into a traditional loan, which fits with city policy and other housing assistance situations, and he was more than happy to. So the report tonight, and the reason this is on the agenda, is to recommend that the city manager's agreement be amended to provide that as a loan of $200,000, that it be at the terms offered in other housing assistance programs from the city, which is LAIF plus 1%. Why do this now? I didn't actually know when to do it initially, but then the notion of the city manager's retirement date because of COVID-19, which is set in his contract for next July, was raised as being extended. So if we were going to put before the council a possible amendment to the agreement to extend the city manager's retirement date, I just thought this was the best time to bring this up. It does not have a fiscal impact on the city. It will still show on the city's books as you have seen it. The difference is you're taking the bet out of it and you're going to a secured investment secured by a deed of trust on the property. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any questions for staff from council?
Thank you, Tom, for bringing this up and investigating this. And I think it makes sense for all parties to have that type of transparency and providing that security for the city. So thank you for doing it.
I'll make a motion, Madam Mayor, to approve resolution number 2020-63.
Thank you. And is there a second?
I'll second that if there's no other comments.
There are no members of the public wishing to speak, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And with that, can we get a roll call vote?
I'm sorry, who did the second?
I did.
Okay. Councilmember Conway?
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis? Aye. Councilmember Lentz?
Aye.
And Mayor O'Connell?
Aye. Thank you. That brings us to item J, interim improvements at the Parcel R, Sierra Point. Staff report, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Did John leave us?
No, ma'am, that's actually going to be me. It's going to be
Okay,
Randy. I'm going to take that on. Ingrid, can I share? Looks like I can. So I'll go ahead and move over to this picture. My screen is being shared at this point in time. You can see what's titled Proposed Bench and Table Area. So good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. So this area here is the former Parcel R. Many years ago, when the entire Sierra Point area was being proposed for development, this was being reserved for a restaurant at the time. Since that point in time, the easement that the city had provided to this property, which we own in fee, has been returned to us. It's been removed, so we now have full control over that. We don't have permanent plans yet for developing all of the Sierra Point shoreline that we own in fee, which is public property. But what we have been asked to do is to come up with a proposal to create some sort of interim improvement to make it more amenable and make it more user-friendly. So this right here is the terminus of Sierra Point Parkway. This would be the eastern terminus, and you came all the way out, and you get to a point where you have to choose to either make a right to go over to the harbor master's office or make a left to go parking. And for those of you more familiar with the area, this is Dock 3 and the restroom that's out there at Dock 3. So the area in particular that we are proposing to make this improvement on is right here. It's covered by this white line. It's encircled by the white line. And one of the challenges that we've had with this area for a long time is that it doesn't sheet flow properly. So there actually is a drain. There's a catch basin in this vicinity right here. But unfortunately, the water flows that way. It flows this way. And it puddles at the bottom of the slope here. This is a higher area. This is probably 5 or 6 feet higher in the air than that. So we're hoping to accomplish two things actually by this project. One of them is we're going to sheet flow the water that gets on here and get it to the catch basin so it gets out to the bay where it needs to be. And the other is that we would create a relatively flat, slightly sloped area that's going to be very, very much protected from our predominantly westerly winds and allow folks to be out there at benches and tables. So we've discussed this with San Mateo County Environmental Health and the Regional Water Quality Control Board. San Mateo County Environmental Health says this doesn't require a permit. They want to see the work as we're doing it, but they understand that we're only just scarifying very, very much the surface of the area and then hardening it and putting the sheet water flow in. So they're happy to come out there and do that with us. We've already got an estimate on the work. The estimate is close to $80,000 just to do the grading work. It's a fairly big area. It's tricky grading that has to be done. And staff's proposal was to originally not spend all that money. We've got some leftover benches from the community park. We would buy perhaps a handful of tables, sprinkle them out there, put a couple of trash cans out there, and then see if we build it, will they come? So with that, I'd be happy to answer questions.
Randy. Thank you, Randy. This did come to the subcommittee of Councilmember Lentz and myself, and at that point, we talked about trimming the weeds and it being basically a maintenance project, more of the whole back side, the westernmost section of it, to actually grub that to get rid of the invasives that are on it and tidy it up, so to speak. Is that proposal included in this discussion?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, we've already done that. So let me go down and see if I can. This is what Parcel R looks like right now. So if you've been out there before, it was really invaded Scotch broom. It was actually quite nasty. But we've been out there and we've had crews working out there for a couple of days. And this is what it looks like from two different directions. And it looks pretty tolerable right now. And so we're thinking that if we just get out there and stay on top of it on a monthly basis, that we can keep it looking like this. It won't be an eyesore. It's not beautiful. It's not a finished condition. But I think until we get to the point where the council decides that you'd like to give us direction to put out an RFP to develop an entire shoreline proposal and see what it is we want to do with the land that we own fully on the east side here and on the south side, and land that will be developed on the north side, kind of an encompassing park that will ring our marina. I think this is probably an okay way to leave it. That would be my suggestion.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate the work that you've done on this. So with that, do we have any questions from council for staff?
I do, Madam Mayor. Hey, Randy, can you go to that first picture, please?
Sure, sir. This one right here?
Yeah, that one right there. So, how many acres are we looking at just right here? I know that the park extends further north, further south, talking about that linear parkway, green space along the water, but just right here.
Wow, sir, I think you've stumped me. If I had to guess off the top of my head, I'd say that's about half an acre. It looks like about 20,000 square feet to me. 20,000
square feet. And then, just trying to, not to stump you again, Randy, but, just comparing like this, what we're seeing right here to our existing community park. What's the difference about it?
This Parcel R? No, Parcel R is significantly smaller. I mean, it's a very, very
well, I mean, not just Parcel R, but the whole green space that we're looking at right now.
Oh, if you consider the entire linear frontage of land we own, it would probably
2.7 acres.
Right, at the park. This would probably be pretty close, if not exceeded, just because of its linear nature. I mean, it's quite long but narrow. As you go further along, as you go further up in this direction here, it narrows down a little bit, right? Because obviously you only have this slope and you have this sort of Embarcadero sort of area, but you've got a lot of land to work with. I mean, you've got a lot of opportunity to really do something nice here and just really create what I've always envisioned here since I've been tasked with taking over the marina is really having this nice, gentle transition of development, right? Because marinas, we like to have marinas very calm. We don't want a lot of activity here, but then we have, as you go further inland, we obviously are having multi-story buildings and such in here. And so a natural transition of development here where, there's more activity in here, there's more places for people to sit and enjoy, and then eventually building up into whether the hotel gets built by the property owner up here or these other office buildings that have been built down here. To me, that's a really exciting plan to work on how do you bring those together so it's not a jarring transition, but it's a pleasant transition. It's a workable transition. It's kind of like, I don't know, I think of it as like the border of a nice lake in Central Park, something that you really want to be at.
Yeah. I think using Central Park as an example is a really good one. I think like urban spaces that have those wonderful central parks, really provide that haven for not only for people that work in the area, but then it's also a destination for the community as well. You talked about perhaps moving forward with that process of creating the master plan, and Tara, you and I have been working at the subcommittee level, trying to raise the money, right, any way we could. Our efforts together, and we raised $1.8 million or something like that. I mean, it's a crazy amount. How much money have we put together through the HCP
development
edition?
projects? I think that was 1.2, and we started with 600,000. But those are things that we talked about that we really want to get the community involved in.
Absolutely.
And to get the community and stakeholders so that we know what the community wants, and that's a project that's probably a few years out still, depending on where else we get distracted with our attentions. But it's something that could be really nice and have a lot of benefit for the community once we get a good plan and figure out what would be the right features for that area.
Definitely. Yeah, no, absolutely. So Randy, what would be the steps? Kind of go through, that master plan step and to when we could have the community get engaged.
Thank you for asking that, sir, because that really was part of the staff reports. I wanted to tease the council a little bit to see if I get your interest in that. Because I think that the way to develop a shoreline like this in such a major piece of property really requires a strong landscape architectural development. I think we would want to first go out and meet with the appropriate subcommittee of the council and talk about what are your dreams, what are your aspirations, what are your desires, who do you think we ought to have involved in this, what are the members of the community? I mean, I think clearly we ought to have Parks and Rec involved out here. Parks and Rec normally doesn't have sway over the marina. It's a separate enterprise fund, but I think if we're going to create this beautiful park-like area, they clearly ought to be involved in it. So I think we ought to put that together. And I'm hoping you'll direct me at some point in time to come back to you with the basis, with the framework for requests for proposals that we would put out to planners and landscape architects, and then have a vigorous vetting process and bring people in, really very much akin to what we did with the library. I mean, we worked really hard on getting the right architect with the new Brisbane Library, and I hope you're as excited with the final product as I am, because I think we really found something. We really got an architect that put something nice and new in the center of our main street in Brisbane that fits our community. And I think it would be lovely to replicate that same sort of outcome out here at the marina, something nice and new, but that fits us, but that looks like Brisbane, that suits Brisbane, and that really serves our citizens. So I think to do all of that, probably 3 to 4 months to get a request for proposal finalized, give consultants 60 to 90 days to respond to it, maybe by summer, late summer, have a final request for proposals that could be turned into a contract, and then let the consultant move forward with stakeholder group meetings and such late summer, early fall of 21.
Wow. That'd be pretty awesome.
I'm glad you're excited about it. So
yeah, no, I'm totally stoked. I mean, it even looks great just in that picture that you showed right there, but, getting that community input and just really making it such a fun place for our community. Yeah, that'd be so sweet.
It's a jewel. It's a jewel. It just needs a little bit of polishing.
Mm-hmm.
If I may, Madam.
But that is not what's before us tonight.
No.
But you're certainly welcome to give direction, Madam Mayor. We're happy to take direction. We're staff.
Yes.
If I may, Madam Mayor.
Of course.
When you go out to this area on the marina on the weekends, there's a whole bunch of people doing things out there that they can't do anywhere else, like flying their little model airplanes and the little RV motorized little trucks, and those people have kids out there with them. So just sort of, and that's right next to where they play. So it's a whole different group of people that are out there all the time anyway. So feedback from some of them might be nice. You know, the park benches for sure on the north end, right where their families could sit and watch them fly their model airplanes and helicopters and things. And they're all electric now, so they don't have that obnoxious two-stroke any longer. So there's those people would probably love some park benches. So I'm all for it.
Great.
Well,
anything is better than what it is right now. And I know it's been a weed. I know it's been a weed patch, and this picture must have been taken in the late spring when things are green, after the winter, and I see my boat.
That was not intentional, sir. You were just in the photos. Yeah. You just got a photobombed it by Google.
Yeah, totally, man. But I think it's good to, I wouldn't expect this, of course, to be permanent, but it's something that, is kind of like a start, and I like the idea of, looking at it down the road. And it's kind of how our park evolved at first too, is the park, had a community group that got involved and, wanted certain features in it, like the gazebo and how it was going to come together. And then, a few years later, we extended it out a bit, and then a few years later, we extended it out further and, kind of evolved into a nice park, that, you have certain areas that are way different than the grassy area. You got kind of picnic area, you got kind of reflection area, and it was kind of an organic happening. And I think this is a good start, and I'm happy to see it. So, I'd certainly go with the subcommittee and staff's recommendation.
Great. I do believe that we have members of the public who would like to speak on this item. So if we're ready to hear their input.
Michelle, go ahead.
Hi, it's me again. I guess I'm the member of the public that's speaking a lot tonight, but I will say that Parcel R is near and dear to my heart. Dug our feet in and kept it. Even though we had a 99-year lease on it, we've recovered it after 35 years of it being fallow ground. So I'm really excited that we have it. I will say, is there going to be any kind of irrigation for the larger area? Because right now it looks like a big brown hump. And I'd like to know, Randy, did you guys actually weed wrench the broom, or did you just cut it off? Because it makes a huge difference in what we can do temporarily on the land. Because if you just cut it off, it'll come right back and sprout. This is an area where we've planted native plants at the yacht club, and they've done very, very well with a minimum amount of water. So I'd really like to see us kind of in the interim. 3 or 4 years is a long time, not as long as 35 years of having this. It became a lump there because it was a spiteful thing that Cole did to put all that dirt there to block the view as you came down the road towards the marina. And so it's interesting because now we're going to make it something that's really cool. And I'd love to see at least one bench up higher on the plateau, even though it's windy. sometimes, because the view from up there is really spectacular, especially for moonrises and sunrises and things like that. But in the interim, until there is a plan that's more formalized, I would like to see us do some modest landscaping on the hillock, and make it a much nicer place than, because in the summer it's just going to be dry grass, weeds, and the next thing you know, you'll have a ad hoc pump track there or something like the area that needed to be fenced in by UPC. So I'd really like us to look beyond just that one little strip and kind of think about how we can reasonably landscape the rest of it for the next several years until we get a true plan in place. So instead of just focusing on the one little strip, I hope that we could work towards landscaping the entire area, maybe even have some community gardens there. I don't know if that's feasible, but I'm really, really glad that we did not sell this property or trade this property that we own for other property that we own. So thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments from public or from council?
Madam Mayor, there's no other written comments or text messages from the members of the public.
Okay. Any questions from council, or can I get a motion?
Make a motion to approve the working proposal discussed and establish a budget of $100,000 for the work.
Thank you. And
I'll
do we have a
second
second? Okay. And with that, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Conway?
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Lance?
Aye.
And Mayor O'Connell?
Aye. Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I was just curious, is there any direction from the council for staff to bring forward a future proposal on how to develop an RFP for the entire shoreline?
Oh yeah, for sure, Randy. We talked about that. I'm sorry, Madam Mayor. You didn't talk to you. Sorry.
That's okay. I do think that that's something that the council should discuss, and perhaps get a subcommittee together to, whether that be the current Sierra Point subcommittee or its new rendition, to look at those kind of issues. And but I think that's not on the table for tonight.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll take that on board, and I'll be happy to discuss it and coordinate it with the city manager.
Okay, great. Thank you. So that brings us to item 9, presentations. I'm not sure of the length of the presentation from UPC on the Baylands Operable Unit 2, but does anyone need a break before we get into that?
It should be relatively short.
Seeing no.
It's up to you to take a break, but it should be short. Seeing no nods, we'll go ahead with the presentation. Thank you.
Great. Hi, I'm Tracy Craig. It is a relatively short presentation. First of all, thank you for having me, Mayor O'Connell and the City Council and City Manager Holstein. I'm here on behalf of Vic Powell of the Water Board, and I'm here simply to discuss the public comment period for OU2, which is a portion of the Brisbane Baylands development. I'm going to share my screen, so hang on one moment. Let me just do this. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay, hang on. Yeah, let's try this again.
Can you see my screen?
I can see you, but can you see my screen? I'm hitting share screen.
Not yet.
No.
Let me try one more time. See, Mayor O'Connell, this is the problem. You thought it was going to be quick, and here I am trying to.
Do you want me to pull it up, Tracy? Let me know.
let me just see here. It says, yeah, if you can, that would be super, because I'm trying to hit share screen, but it's not working for some reason.
Sure. Hold on, please.
Thank you. Thanks for your patience, everybody. I know it's late.
Tracy, you could, oh, never mind.
It's not me. You don't want me to report on that.
I was going to say Tracy could maybe try to pull it up one more time. I think it just got confused after Randy Bowe was sharing his.
Well, it says this will stop. Okay, let's do this. So let me try that. No problem. You see it?
No.
No.
Wow, I'm doing it all right. So not sure what's going on there.
Okay.
Well, I can certainly just walk you through this if you'd like. It's nothing too earth-shattering.
Here we go.
Now we can see your screen.
We got it.
That's on my screen. I think that's
me.
Vic Padilla's screen. Well, good. I'm glad you can see it. Great. Thank you so much. So I'm here simply to tell you, to inform you that the OU2 portion of the Brisbane Baylands property, the public comment period for that is open. And if you look at the graphic here, it's obviously the 140-acre pink site on the front. Next slide, please. And then City Manager Holstein had simply asked that I let you know what was done to inform the public and what the next steps are. The public comment period opened on October 28th. It may close on December 18th. We'll get to that in a moment. I think it will be extended considerably. It was announced via a fact sheet that the Water Board issued, also in your newsletter in the city's e-blast. It was mailed to all the residents in Brisbane, as well as some folks in Daly City and some folks in San Francisco, translated into 2 languages. We do have the document, which is considerable. I think it's something like 30 binders, which is just obscene, at City Hall for viewing. And then we also have them online where you can just click online and the documents will come up. And the reason that the document is so big is there was a data investigation, a data gap study, and that alone is something like 20 binders worth of information. So quite large. Next slide, please. So there'll be a public meeting to discuss it, and that's on Wednesday, November 18th, 6:30. The Zoom link is there. It will also be simultaneously interpreted in Spanish, Cantonese, and Mandarin. It will be recorded for future viewing. We'll also be setting up a Facebook page for people so they can just tap into the meeting on their phone. It will also be live streamed via YouTube. We're also available, Big Pal is available for smaller virtual meetings and briefings to talk with people about that, because it is a kind of dense topic to talk about. And finally, we've already received one comment. We received it actually before the public comment period started. It was a request for an extension of the public comment period for the following reasons. COVID-19 pandemic and the holidays, and also just the sheer size of the document. The individual felt that people needed more time. And finally, the last comment for extension was that Brisbane has a robust community that's very involved with the site, has been for some time, and feels that they should be given enough time to actually digest this document. The Water Board is considering that request, and will make a decision in the next couple of days, and I'll inform City Manager Holstein about that. The request was to extend the public comment period to the end of January, so January 30th. And that's my presentation. My understanding is that your staff will actually be briefing the City Council on the technical aspects of this project. And I don't know if that's your actual staff or your consultant EKI that you hired, but my understanding is you'll be getting that briefing from your staff. We're also available to chat with you, invite you to the community meeting. or to call Vic Powell directly if you have any questions. So that's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions that City Council might have for me.
Thank you so much. And does any member of the council have a question?
No.
I'm assuming with the signers and documents, there's lots of technical information available for our involved citizenry to look at and digest and learn what the contaminants are out there.
It was summarized in the fact sheet. Oh, excuse me. Forgive me.
Oh, no, that's okay. And so that is also with the recommendations of how they're going to remediate in this document?
Yes. So it summarizes the contamination that was found. It discusses all of the investigation findings, and then it goes through a series of exercises where they looked at different ways to remediate the site, and they have a preferred recommendation. And that's all actually summarized rather nicely in the fact sheet that was sent out. I think it's probably 3 pages. And then also all the technical documents are available, as I said, in the information repository that the city was nice enough to let us use. And I do want to say all COVID-19 protocols will be followed in viewing that, and then also online.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
So no comments or questions from the staff. And since this is a presentation, I don't think we have public comment on this unless we have someone that direly needs to speak on it. This is just informational. So thank you very much.
I have one other thing I'd just like to share with you. Our meeting will be on the 18th. I will come back to your city council meeting on the 19th and report to you how that went. I'll just do it in the public comment period so you know, and I'll let you know how many folks came, update you on the public comment period, let you know the tone and tenor of the meeting, and then of course we'll share with you any comments that we received. So I will see you folks on the 19th.
Great, thank you very much, Tracy.
Thank you for having me, I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, good night.
Good night.
All right.
So with that, it brings us to staff reports and item L, the city manager's report on upcoming activities.
Hey, thank you, Madam Mayor. We can get down to the next slide. Okay, so playground and skate park was reopened this week. We do remind everyone who's not wearing a face covering that they need to do so, or else we may need to close these facilities again. And we are trying to monitor those as best we can. And certainly if the public has any complaints or concerns, they can call City Hall or during off hours, the Brisbane Police Department. The City of Brisbane 2020 State of the City with Mayor O'Connell will happen on next Tuesday, November 10th at 6:30 p.m. You can join the Zoom meeting or watch on YouTube and Channel 27. More information will be on our homepage, brisbaneca.org, and we'll also put information out in tomorrow afternoon's blast. We will be having our annual City of Brisbane Veterans Day flag raising. Of course, this year it will be virtual. Councilmember Conway will be joining us. This will take place at 11 a.m. on November 11th to commemorate the Veterans Day and the ending of World War I on November 11th, 1918. So we're asking people to join us virtually on that. And if you do happen to show up, obviously social distancing and masks are required. Election results, local elections results are available through our website or through San Mateo County election results, and track my ballot, statewide results. And we will be having post-election results will be released at 4:30 every few days until November 30th. The election is scheduled to be certified on December 3rd. The City Council special meeting December 10th is when the city will officially declare the election results, as well as recognize outgoing council member Clark Conway for his 23 years of service on the Brisbane City Council. Just a reminder that this is Fire Prevention Month, and we have Fire Prevention Month videos. Due to the pandemic, North County Fire was unable to host their annual open house events this October. In lieu of that, Station 81 here in Brisbane and the communication staff created a variety of videos to educate the public on emergency preparedness. Those can be found at northcountyfire.org Prevention Month open houses on our website. And a reminder that the winter cleanup will go on as normal. We're not going to do this virtual because we haven't figured out a way to do that. It will be November 14th and 15th. This is the map, which I believe is pretty consistent with past years in terms of where the South San Francisco scavengers trucks will be located at, or bins will be located at. And then finally, we are commencing our recruitment process per direction of the council a few months back. The recruitment process will commence on November 6th, which is tomorrow, and it will run through January 8th of 2021. We have 4 seats on the Parks and Recreation Commission, 3 seats on the Planning Commission, 2 seats on the Complete Streets Safety Committee, 3 seats on the Public Art Advisory Committee, and 2 seats on the Open Space and Ecology Committee. For more information, you can go to our website, www.brisbaneca.org, or email the city clerk at brisbaneca.org. Deadline to apply again is Friday, January 8th, 2021 at 8 or 5 p.m. And that concludes tonight's report.
Thank you very much. Then we do have council mayor matters, and item M, the term expiration of city representative to the Board of Trustees of the San Mateo County Mosquito and Vector Control District. I understand that, well, we currently, Carolyn Parker is our representative. Are you asking if we want to make this an open enrollment for this, or has member Carolyn Parker expressed an interest in continuing her seat?
Member Carolyn Parker is enthusiastically wanting to write a letter of interest to continue her work in the Vector Control District. So I just wanted to ask Mayor and Council if that's the direction that you'd want to go.
From what I understand, she's been a very involved person in that, and been on their finance and I believe on their, I shouldn't say reorganization committee, but been very involved, and so I'm not sure what the council's opinion is, or if we'd like to do open it up during the same. I mean, I would give her a thumbs up for doing that thankless job, but we certainly could open it up at the same time. I'm seeing thumbs up from our council members, so I would think that if she would like to go ahead and re-up for another term, that we would encourage her to do that.
Thank you. I'll advise her accordingly.
We're all nodding our heads yes, so I think we should let her know that we would be honored to have her serve another term and represent us. And then we have the countywide assignments and subcommittee reports. I understand that there was some documents sent out about this, but I failed to print it. So does any member want to go ahead? Any of our council members want to go ahead with their reports on this item? Anybody attend anything fun, exciting?
Cliff and I had affordable housing. We talked about how to structure our program for the $100,000 the council earmarked for rental assistance for people affected by the pandemic. So we looked at a number of different cities across California and programs in our county to determine like how we wanted to structure ours. We think we kind of came up with some good recommendations. Is that coming forward back to the council, or are we just doing it?
Yeah, no, it'll come back to the council at your next meeting.
Okay, so you guys will hear all about it next week.
Okay.
That's all I had.
I'm trying to think. I'm sure I had some meetings, but I can't remember mine. How about you, Karen?
I have nothing.
We did have a mini meeting regarding flagpoles, and no decisions were made. Councilmember Cunningham and I. So that really has no outcome. And then Cliff, anything?
No, just the meeting that Madison and I had.
Okay. And Clark?
Nothing.
Okay, we've had a nice quiet 2 weeks between our meeting schedule. So that brings us to City Council meeting schedule upcoming.
There's no changes proposed since you've seen this last.
Okay, great, thank you. And on the City Council meeting, not that this is there going to be a Festival of Lights virtual thing this year?
Yes, we will be planning to do a virtual Festival of Lights with the tree lighting being televised through, I believe, Channel 27 or Facebook Live or YouTube or some fashion. We will ask the mayor and the volunteers of the year to light the tree like we normally do, and we are working on doing a car parade, I think, in town is what Parks and Recreation is working through. They're still working with the subcommittee and Parks and Recreation Commission to figure out exactly what will happen.
Which tree are we lighting? The old one or the new Charlie Brown tree?
We are lighting the larger tree, and we are holding out good thoughts for the smaller tree.
You could light it with a match, I think. The fire department might appreciate
That
it.
is the most 2020 tree ever. The tree got the memo for this year.
We are still holding out hope that the tree has not passed away yet, that there is still life in the tree, what we've been told, and there is still a chance it can make a comeback, and we are holding out our hope for it to make a comeback.
Maybe it has tree COVID.
A Christmas miracle. It'd be a Christmas miracle.
So, and
we're thinking that once the election results are certified, the tree will get much better.
We're hoping it's a political statement on the state of our country. What date is that virtual tree lighting going to be?
We always do it the first Sunday of December. We are not changing. That is not changing.
Okay.
I don't have the date off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And that brings us to written communications. And you'll need, if you can read that, I cannot read it on the screen at the size you've got it.
We received a correspondence from the San Mateo County Transit District regarding the fall 2020 quarterly update. We received Correspondence from Craig Communications regarding the Brisbane Baylands OU2 site draft environmental cleanup document available for review. Tony Varios regarding the dark sky movement research follow-up. Patricia A. Klicklack regarding the Grateful for Brisbane Police Department. Claire Johnson, correspondence regarding Black Lives Matter and improving equitable treatment of citizens by the police.
Thank you. And that brings us to oral communications number 2. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on an item that was not discussed tonight?
There are no members of the public wishing to speak at this time.
Okay, great. And with that, we will move to adjournment. Thank you all very much, and have a good evening. Thank you.
Right.
And congratulations on the election and our 2 incumbents being re-elected, and our best hopes for Clark when we see him at our next meeting.
Definitely.
Thank you, Terry.
Yeah, there you go, Clark. I like it, man.
Yes, he'll be virtual.
That is
The
pretty
recording
cool.
has stopped.